All right, let's dive into the world of rolling stock assembly. We're going to help you get ready for that interview you've got coming up.
Sounds good.
We're talking about building trains, trams, all that cool stuff.
Yeah, it's more than just putting the pieces together.
Right. It's technical, it's problem solving, it's a whole package.
Exactly. Thinking on your feet is just as important as knowing the blueprints.
Speaking of blueprints, that's a big one in this job, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Crucial. I was looking at RoleCatcher's interview guide, and they had a question about that. Something like, what experience do you have in reading and interpreting technical drawings?
Ah, yes. Classic question.
I bet it's more than just saying, yep, I've seen one though, right?
Definitely. You got to get specific. Talk about the types of drawings you've worked with, like electrical schematics, mechanical blueprints, that sort of thing.
Okay, so like really showing you understand the different types.
Yeah, and think back to projects where you had to use those drawings to like visualize the final product.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe you had to figure out how a complex machine fit together just from the diagram, stuff like that.
That makes sense. It's like a giant 3D puzzle, but with train parts.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious, are there specific types of drawings that are like super important in this field?
For sure. You'll definitely see bogie schematics. Those are the ones that detail the undercarriage with the wheels and axles.
Okay.
Then you've got electrical diagrams. Those map out the whole wiring system of the train. It's a lot.
Wow, that's intense. So those are the ones to really focus on.
Yeah, it's like learning a whole new language, the language of train construction.
That's fascinating. It's clear you need to know your drawings for this job.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's switch gears a bit. Talk about problem solving.
Okay, yeah.
Another question from RoleCatcher. Can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot an issue with a piece of machinery?
Oh, that's a classic interview question. And for good reason. It lets you show how you handle challenges.
So it's about more than just fixing the thing, right?
Right. The interviewer wants to see your process, how you think things through. Did you stay calm? Did you have a system for figuring it out?
So it's really showcasing those critical thinking skills. I bet the STAR method would be helpful here, isn't it?
Totally. Situation, task, action, result. It's a great way to structure your answer.
Okay, so you lay out the situation, what your role was, what steps you took, and then what happened because of it.
Exactly. And remember, be specific. Don't just say, I fixed the machine. Tell them what kind of machine it was, what the problem was, all those details.
I bet they'll have follow-up questions too, right? Like, what was the toughest part, or what did you learn?
Definitely. Be ready to show that you can reflect on the experience and adapt for next time.
This is great stuff.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze job descriptions for you and point out what skills you should be highlighting.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
Exactly. No more guessing games. It helps you tailor your answers to each specific job.
That's a game changer, for sure. Okay, back to the interview itself. Safety is a big deal in this line of work, right?
Huge. Absolutely.
RoleCatcher asks, how do you ensure that you are following safety protocols when assembling rolling stock?
Another important one.
And it's got to be more than just knowing the rules, right? It's about how you actually apply them every day.
Yeah, you want to show that you're proactive about safety, that it's just part of how you work. So instead of listing off protocols, give them examples.
Okay, I like that.
Like how you always wear your PPE or do pre-shift checks or report any potential hazards right away.
Makes sense. Now, working on a fast-paced production line, that's got to be tough.
It can be, yeah. Keeping up with those production targets is definitely a key part of the job.
And RoleCatcher actually brings that up in their guide. They say meeting those targets is a big responsibility.
Oh, for sure.
So how do you prove you can handle that kind of pressure in the interview?
Well, there's another great question in the guide. How do you prioritize your workload when assembling rolling stock? That's your chance to shine.
So time management, organization, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Share your strategies.
Yeah.
Maybe you make to-do lists or break tasks down into smaller chunks or use some time management techniques, whatever works for you. The key is to show them you can adapt, prioritize, and meet those deadlines.
I love that. Resourcefulness, adaptability, that's what they're looking for. Now, before we move on to more questions, I want to touch on something from the career guide that caught my eye.
Okay.
It mentioned that this job can be pretty physically demanding.
It's true. You're on your feet a lot, sometimes lifting heavy things, working with tools that take strength and stamina.
So it's not just about acing the interview, it's making sure this is actually a good fit for you physically.
Right. It's something to keep in mind for sure.
Now, I know RoleCatcher's AI can actually help with this too, right?
Yeah, they have a feature that gives you feedback on your interview answers. Like, it can tell you if you're rambling or not being clear enough.
Oh, that's so helpful. So you can practice and refine your answers beforehand.
Exactly. Okay, let's tackle some more of those questions. How about this one? How do you ensure that the rolling stock you assemble meets quality standards?
Quality control, big one.
It's all about precision and attention to detail. You want to show them you go the extra mile to ensure top-notch quality.
So what kind of examples would really impress them?
Think about times you've been extra careful, like meticulously double-checking measurements, performing thorough inspections, or setting up a system to track potential issues.
So being proactive, showing you're really committed to quality.
Exactly. That's what makes your answers stand out.
This is great advice. Now, before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, let's touch on teamwork.
Sounds good.
RoleCatcher asks, how do you handle conflicts or disagreements with coworkers or supervisors?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Disagreements happen everywhere, especially when everyone's under pressure to get the job done.
Right, so how do you answer this one effectively?
You want to show them you can handle these situations professionally and respectfully. Share an example of a time you faced a conflict and explain how you resolved it. Did you listen to the other person? Did you communicate clearly? Did you focus on finding a solution that worked for everyone?
So it's not about avoiding conflict, it's about showing you can work through it constructively.
Exactly. All right, welcome back to our deep dive on rolling stock assembly. Still working on those interview skills, getting you ready for that big day.
Yeah, we covered some great stuff in the first part, but there's so much more to talk about.
Absolutely. We left off talking about conflict resolution, which is so important in any team environment. But let's switch gears for a minute.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's talk about career growth. What are the opportunities for advancement in this field?
Yeah, I was curious about that too. RoleCatcher's guide mentioned there's definitely room to move up, specialize, all that.
Oh yeah, for sure. You could get really specialized, maybe in electrical systems, or even move into a supervisory role down the line.
That's great to hear.
And speaking of showing your potential, let's look at this question from RoleCatcher. It's, can you describe a time when you had to work on a complex assembly project?
Okay, that one seems like it's all about highlighting those promotable skills.
Exactly. It's your chance to show them you can handle the tough stuff, that you're ready for more responsibility.
So what kind of project should you talk about?
Choose something that really tested your abilities, something where you had to think critically, solve problems, and contribute to a successful outcome. It doesn't have to be huge or anything.
Okay, so even if someone hasn't worked on a train specifically, they can still talk about a complex project from a different field.
Absolutely. It's all about transferable skills. Maybe they built something complicated or did a really tough repair.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The key is to break it down. What were the challenges? What decisions did you make? What were the results? And did you have to adapt your approach or learn something new along the way?
Those are the details that really make an answer stand out.
Exactly. And be prepared for follow-up questions.
Yeah.
They might ask about the biggest obstacles you faced or what you do differently next time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Those are the ones that really make you think on your feet.
Right. And if it was a team project, don't forget to mention how you collaborated with others. Teamwork is huge in this field.
It's all about showing you can work effectively with others, communicate clearly, all that.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about career advancement, but what about the overall job market? What's the employment outlook like for rolling stock assemblers?
It's actually looking really good. There's a growing demand for skilled professionals, especially with all the infrastructure projects happening and the focus on sustainable transportation.
Oh, wow. That's really encouraging to hear. It's not just a job. It's a field with a real future.
Exactly. Now, let's get back to those interview questions. RoleCatcher has one about quality control. It says, how do you ensure that the rolling stock you assemble meets quality standards?
It's got to be a big one, right? I mean, you're building something as complex as a train.
Oh, absolutely. Precision is key. You want to show them you're not just putting the pieces together, you're making sure everything is perfect.
So how do you demonstrate that in your answer?
Talk about your approach to quality control. Are you familiar with specific procedures? Do you have experience using measuring tools? Are you good at spotting and correcting defects? Maybe you have a system for double-checking your work or documenting each step.
Okay, so it's about being meticulous, having a system, and really caring about the quality of the final product.
Right, and don't be afraid to give examples. Maybe you caught a problem before it became a big issue, or you implemented a new process that improved accuracy. Those kinds of stories really make an impact.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's all about going above and beyond, setting the bar high. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, technology. You were talking about how it's playing a bigger role in rolling stock assembly.
Oh, for sure. We're seeing more and more robots and automated systems being used in factories these days.
So what does that mean for someone who's interested in this career? Do they need to be a tech expert?
Well, it definitely helps to have an interest in technology. Think about it. You could be programming robots to do specific tasks,
Right.
troubleshooting those automated systems, or even working with 3D printing technology to create train components. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. It's like a whole new world of possibilities
Yeah.
opening up.
Hmm.
So even though it's a traditional field, it's also on the cutting edge of innovation.
Exactly. So if our listener has any experience with robotics, programming, or even just a strong interest in tech, they should definitely highlight that in the interview.
Makes total sense. Now let's tackle another interview question. This one's from RoleCatcher, and it asks, what experience do you have in assembling rolling stock?
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward.
It does, but I think it's also a chance to show your passion for this field. If you've actually worked on rolling stock before, great. Describe the types of vehicles you've assembled, the tasks you performed, any specialized knowledge you gained.
Right. But what if our listener is new to this specific type of assembly?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Should they just say they don't have direct experience?
Not necessarily. Remember, transferable skills are gold. They can still talk about their experience in other assembly or manufacturing
Oh,
roles.
I see. So if they've worked on complex projects, used specialized tools, or dealt with mechanical issues, that all counts.
Exactly. It's all about connecting the dots for the interviewer, showing how their previous experience is relevant to this role.
And showing they're eager to learn new things.
Right. Employers love to see that enthusiasm.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I want to touch on a question that can be a little tricky. Salary expectations.
Ah, yes, the salary Tulgin. It's a classic, and it can make people nervous.
Definitely. So how should our listener approach this one?
The key is to be prepared. Do your research beforehand. Look at industry salary surveys, online resources, that kind of thing. You want to have a realistic idea of what rolling stock assemblers typically earn in your area.
So it's about knowing your worth, but also being realistic about the market.
Exactly. And you can also frame your answer in terms of your skills and experience. You could say something like, based on my experience, and mention relevant areas and my skills, I'm looking for a salary that's competitive for this role.
Oh, that's a good approach. It shows you've done your homework and you're confident in what you bring to the table.
Exactly.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into rolling stock assembly. We've covered so much ground already. It's amazing how much goes into this job.
It is, isn't it? From those super technical blueprints to all the teamwork and problem solving, it's a really dynamic field.
And don't forget about the career opportunities. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about how there's room to grow, specialize, all that.
Absolutely. And you know what? We haven't really talked about the elephant in the room, or should I say the robot on the assembly line.
The robots,
Yeah.
right? RoleCatcher's Guide did mention the growing use of robots and automated systems. So for someone who's thinking about this career, what does that actually mean for them?
Well, it's a really exciting time to be in this field, honestly. I mean, just imagine you could be programming robots to do specific tasks, troubleshooting these automated systems, maybe even working with 3D printing to create train components.
Wow, that's next level. It's not just assembling parts anymore. It's like being part of a whole technological revolution in manufacturing.
Exactly. So if you have any experience with robotics, programming, or even just a strong interest in technology, definitely highlight that in the interview.
It makes perfect sense. Okay, let's tackle one last question from RoleCatcher. This one asks, what experience do you have in assembling rolling stock?
Okay, this one seems pretty straightforward.
It does, but I think it's also a chance to really show your passion for the field.
Hmm.
If you've worked on rolling stock before, fantastic. Tell them about the types of vehicles you assembled, the specific tasks you did, any specialized knowledge you picked up.
Yeah, definitely. But what if someone is new to this specific type of assembly? What should they say then?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Should they just be honest and say they don't have direct experience?
Well, they can definitely be honest about that, but they should also remember that transferable skills are super valuable. So talk about your experience in other assembly or manufacturing roles.
Okay, so like if they've worked on complex projects, used specialized tools, dealt with mechanical issues, all that counts.
Exactly. It's all about showing the interviewer how your previous experience is relevant to this role, even if it's not a perfect match.
And don't forget to show your enthusiasm for learning new things.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Employers love to see that you're eager to grow and expand your skills.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've talked about the technical side, the career prospects, and of course, how to rock that interview. I feel like our listener is in great shape now.
I agree. They have all the tools and knowledge they need to ace that interview and launch a rewarding career in rolling stock assembly.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought. Imagine yourself on the factory floor, surrounded by cutting-edge technology, building the trains that connect cities, transport goods, keep everything moving. It's pretty amazing, right?
It is. It's more than just a job. It's a chance to be part of something bigger, to contribute to a vital industry, and to help build a future where transportation is efficient, sustainable, and always evolving.
What a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of rolling stock assembly. Remember, with the right preparation, a little confidence, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. Good luck with that interview.